Welcome back to my channel, and I'm Maggie Ostara if you're here for the first time. Today we're going to talk about one of my favorite subjects and one that is so important for us, which is about the open emotional solar plexus. This is the location of our creative energy, and we're going to dive into the particulars of what this is like when you have it open in your chart, as I do. Okay, let's go ahead and dive in. So welcome to the emotional solar plexus. So the emotional solar plexus is over here on the right hand side of the body, and it is centered right in that power center, right underneath the sternum, right in the belly. And it's a super important center for us to get to know. About half of the population have this defined or colored in on their chart, and half of us have it open. So mine is open. It is the place for, people think of it really has to do with feelings, okay? It doesn't just have to do with feelings. It has a lot to do with our creative energy. So a lot of times it's misunderstood as kind of being like the place for sadness or happiness or dismay or delight or joy or grief or whatever. But there's lots of other places in the chart. So for example, joy, the gate of joy or the joy of mastery is in the root center, whereas love is in the G center and fear is in the spleen. So these are just to name a few places where there are what we think of as emotions or feelings in other parts of the chart as well. So if you have this colored in or defined in your chart, you're going to have an emotional wave. Okay, and what that wave is like is going to depend on your particular chart, and it's also going to depend on your particular life experience. But generally speaking, people who are emotionally defined have some kind of emotional tone most of the time. It varies in intensity and it varies in terms of its length. Emotionally open people may pick up this energy and amplify it from other people. This is what happens when definition meets openness, right? Openness brings in that energy and amplifies it for a period of time. This can be both a really beautiful, lovely, yummy thing, like if you're in an environment where the energy is really high and people are excited or ecstatic or enthusiastic or loving, compassionate, and so on. Picking up that energy and amplifying it can feel great, right? I notice this when I go into my dance community where the energy is generally really high, and I can really feel that a lot, and I amplify it. It feels really good to me. However, when you're around somebody who is angry, enraged, really upset, it doesn't always feel so great. And so, because you can pick that up and amplify it, and you can also do that with emotions that people are suppressing. I now know that when I was a kid, I picked up and amplified the suppressed anger of my mother in particular, but of my parents. I didn't know what was going on when I was a little kid. I was kind of known for screaming and yelling. And I think about that now. I'm going, why was I screaming and yelling? Like, it's not like I had a really unhappy childhood or anything. But knowing now that actually I grew up with emotionally defined people. So my mother, my father, and my brother, all emotionally defined. I was the only one that was emotionally open. But I was the one that was the most outwardly emotional because I was the one that was picking up and amplifying all of that energy. Yeah, it was really super easy as a kid because I think I felt confused a lot. And like I said, people reacted to me and I got made wrong for my emotional outbursts. So if you are emotionally open and you've had that happen, I feel you. I totally feel you. Generally speaking, people who are emotionally open develop one of three different ways of responding to emotional energy. One is that they can become a people pleaser, right? They're a peacemaker. They want things just to be either even keeled or happy or up, because the feeling of the so-called unpleasant emotions don't feel good to them. So they don't like if people are arguing or if somebody's angry or whatever, it doesn't feel good to them. So they want people to be happy and they want there to be peace. I actually tell a story of someone who was a client of mine for a number of years, in chapter number 2, pillar number 2 of my new book, which is about emotional wisdom. And I tell the story about a woman who is emotionally open and what that led her to do in her family of origin. So sometimes people become people pleasers. That was her experience. Sometimes they become avoidant. So that means I really don't like being around these energies, so I'm either going to physically pick up and leave, right? Or I'm going to check out. Either way, they don't like the way emotions feel unless they're the really positive emotions. And so they just become avoidant, and they want to avoid conflict. They want to avoid difficult conversations. They want to avoid people who are feeling emotional, right? They just are not comfortable with emotions. And then the third one is when they become overly dramatic. Having had an experience of running a lot of emotional energy through that open emotional solar plexus, they can just have this habit. It's a conditioned response of just being really dramatic. Things are really, big, high energy. And sometimes, really they can be like that's the way I was as a kid, right? As I was like screaming because I was picking up energy. But people can carry that pattern with them through the rest of their life if they're not, they don't learn about this, or they don't know what's really going on so that they can change it. And for those of us who are emotionally open, it's really important for us to be able to sort out what's our own emotions and what are other people's emotions. Because just because you're emotionally open, you still have your own emotions. Like, I am an emotional person. I still have my own emotions. It is possible, if you're emotionally open, to be in a pretty neutral emotional state. Sometimes you have to learn how to do that. I feel like I learned how to do it, but you totally can have this neutrality. And I know if I'm not around other people and I don't have a lot, something that's bothering me or something I'm really contemplating or mulling over or something like that, I can be extremely neutral emotionally. That's possible more, I think, for an emotionally open person than it is for those who are defined, because they tend to have some kind of emotional feeling most of the time. For them, it's rare when they just have in a neutral state. It's possible, but it's much less likely for them to experience emotions in that particular way. So part of our journey is learning, like, what is my genuine emotion and what is conditioned emotions and what is when I'm picking up from somebody else and amplifying it. Now, I do want to underscore, none of this is bad or wrong. Right? None of it is bad or wrong. None of it is like somebody's doing something to me or I'm at the mercy of this or that. You don't have to hold it that way at all. Sometimes people do talk about the open emotional solar plexus that way, as if we were just at the mercy of everybody else's emotions. That is not my experience. My experience is that if you have this open, you can actually become extremely wise emotionally, but you have to learn how to do that, right? I mean, wisdom comes from learning. Wisdom comes from life experience. And I know for me, being open really drove me to learn a lot about emotions, to study emotions. I went to therapy when I was pretty young. I was like a teenager, and I really studied emotions a lot. I got into personal growth and looking at how emotional energy works in the personal growth realm, fairly early on. And I would say for the last close to 25 years, I have really studied emotions. And it is possible, if you are emotionally open, and if you're doing regular practices that help you to clear out other people's emotions and other energies so you can get into that more neutral state, that you can be around people who are emotional, but not take it on and amplify it in a way that is detrimental to you. In fact, what you can do is become sensitive to other people's energy, almost like it's a drum. Like there's this energy and you feel it. It's like, what's the resonance of that, right? But it's not penetrating all the way into your system so that it takes you over or dominates you. It's more about, I can feel that energy. I know during the years when I trained and then was a clarity breathwork practitioner and trained other breath workers, and it's a highly emotional practice, right? I mean, there's a lot of emotional flow when you do clarity breathwork. It is an outgrowth of rebirthing, and it is about helping to really bring emotional energy up and out of the body that has been stuck from this and other lives. And it's very, very spiritually healing. There's a lot of emotional flow. And so when I was doing that, I was able to get to a place where I could be very neutral, but to be supporting people and kind of feeling what's happening to them. It's like a sense, really, of what's happening for them. And it enabled me to guide them to go deeper a lot of times because I had this intuitive sense of where they were emotionally. So having an open emotional solar plexus can be a huge benefit for you depending on what kind of work you do in the world. So for me, I was doing clarity breath work, which is specifically about emotional and spiritual healing. But if you work with clients in any particular way, it gives you the ability to tune into them and to feel what's going on for them, whatever kind of work that you're doing with them. And that can be highly beneficial for all of you. And this is really true for any of the centers that you have open, like people with an open G, same kind of thing. You can learn how to be a bit more neutral inside of yourself, but then feel other people's identity center, feel their love and their lovability and their direction in life, but not have it take you over and then you feel like you have to follow them. You can kind of feel it, right? And so there's a resonance there, and there can be a real pleasure in being able to do that, but without feeling like you're being, somebody's colonizing you basically with their energy, right? Because that you don't really want that. This is one of the key reasons that I offer Kundalini Yoga and practices from that tradition, both in my Becoming Sovereign Quantum Retreat Center, where there are recordings of practices that I've done. I also have other recordings here on YouTube. And then obviously when I work with clients, either one-on-one or in programs that I'm offering, because these energetic practices enable us to, by building our energy, we can clear out other people's energy, right? So if you have a lot of openness, like I have 5 open centers. So it's really helpful for me to be just kind of continually clearing my energy field. So I call it energetic hygiene, because we need to be able to do that. Plus, we can also clear out, human-made frequencies like cellular and Wi-Fi and Bluetooth and things like that we're constantly being bombarded with, but we want to move out of our field. So we can clear out, but then we can also build our own energy. So for me, I focus on building the positive energy of my emotional solar plexus. I want it to have a certain kind of emotional tone. I want it to have a frequency of compassion, of love, of possibility, of new potentials, of what could possibly happen for us, of positive anticipation, right? Of grace. What are the positive qualities that feel really good to me? And so as I'm building my energy, I can focus on those qualities, and then that'll help to fill my own energy field with those qualities. Now, because these places are open, right, it's not sustainable. Because that's what openness is. It won't be sustainable over the long term. And this is why I do these practices all the time, like pretty much every day, because I want to have more command of my own personal energy field, right? This is what sovereignty is all about. I wrote my whole book. It's about sovereignty, right? So how we gain sovereignty is by gaining command of our energy field. This is a key component. It's pillar number 4. Is our energetic adeptness and our radiance. So if you're open emotionally, I highly recommend that you use energy practices. You can do some of the Kundalini Yoga practices that I'm offering. You can find other teachers of Kundalini Yoga if you choose. You may have other energy practices. Just make sure that they are, really pretty vibrant and strong, because it makes a difference. You know, our world is really turbulent and challenging. There's just a lot going on, and we want to be able to just continually clear our field so that we can come back into a more neutral state and we have more command over how we're feeling. We want to honor our emotions, whether we're defined or open. We want to honor our emotions, feel our feelings, but we also don't want them to take us over so that we feel like we're at the mercy of our emotions. And doing energetic practices really, really, really help with that, whether you're open or defined. Anyone, whatever your definition is, can learn to access and utilize the creative power of the emotional solar plexus by generating positive feelings about what we desire. Right? Is that this is a really important aspect of our ability to create in the world. This is part of the law of attraction. I prefer the law of creation because this is how we create in the world, is that we get positively engaged with positive anticipation about what it is that we are bringing into our lives, what it is that we want, right? Because if you're, for example, imagining a new relationship that you really want to be a part of, but your emotional tone is like, you know, you still have resentment or despair or grief from a previous relationship or previous experience. And that's kind of what your emotional tone is. And you're imagining this relationship you want to have. It's going to be really hard to bring that into your life if you've got these other emotions going on. So we want to be able to build this kind of positive energy around what it is we want to bring into our lives, whether that's a relationship, whether it's an aspect of your business or your job, whether it's a place you want to live, whether it has to do with your relationship to yourself or your beloveds, you know, whatever it is, whatever the particular theme or topic is, you want to be able to build that positive emotional energy. And doing these Kriya practices, the Kundalini practices, really helps us to do that because it uplifts and expands our auric field, and it helps clear out the emotional energy we don't need anymore, including the stuff that was connected to things that happened when we were small people. Really helps to move all of that energy and then move into these elevated states, which is the place where we can manifest and create from the most easily. So just to summarize, the awakened or empowered expression of the open emotional solar plexus is to be able to, 1, feel your feelings without being dominated or controlled by them. Okay? 2, get back to neutral when you've been impacted by other people's emotions in a way that doesn't feel good to you. Right? Is just to be able to get back to that neutral state. Here I'm suggesting that you do that through energy practices. You know, sometimes just walking outside, especially being in a place in the living world that's really vibrant, that can do that as well. And 3rd, which is to be able to generate emotional energy as a creative force when you want and need to, so that you recognize that, yes, emotional energy is mine, it's part of my birthright, even though I'm open emotionally. And I want to be able to build it so I can direct it where I want to create what I want to in my life. So if you've either been confused or discouraged learning that you are emotionally open and kind of looking at your history and realizing how much maybe you have developed different strategies, whether it's being avoidant or being a people pleaser, or being overly dramatic in response to growing up with an open emotional solar plexus, I want you to know that it actually can be a superpower for you. It totally can, when you learn how to work with emotional energy, and starting with yourself first, right? And then realizing that you actually can develop yourself in a way that you're not so incredibly impacted by other people's emotional energy, and that you have the ability to create emotional energy the way that you want to and generate it for your highest good, so that you can bring more of what you want to in your life instead of what you don't want in your life, which is what happens when we're not in charge of our emotions. I'd love to hear from you down in the comments what your experience has been like. Are you emotionally open, or are you defined? How does that feel for you? What has your experience been like? And what were like maybe the top 1 or 2 takeaways that you got from this video today? This is one of the ways that we also crowdsource wisdom in our community, so I would love to hear from you. Okay, many blessings. Much love. Bye for now.